I don't want you to let the excitement cost you because, well, you found it. The house that you've been waiting for, you walk into the front door. You love the kitchen. The backyard works. Maybe you're already figuring out where your furniture is going. And before we've even made it back to the car, you look at me and you say, Nicole, this is the one. Let's do it. And well, honestly, I love that moment. Buying a home should be exciting. But before putting an offer in on a house, there's something that I want every buyer to do. Take the excitement out of the driver's seat just for a minute, because depending on the market and the house, we may need to move quickly. But moving quickly and making a rushed decision are two very different things. So before we start talking about offer price and terms, there's just a few things that I want us to work through together. We're going to go back to why you like this house in the first place. We're going to gather the information that's available to us. We're going to look at what's happening in the market immediately surrounding this particular property. And we're going to talk through the risks and benefits of the different options that you have when crafting your offer. Because my goal isn't to take away your excitement. My goal is to help you get from I love this house to I feel confident putting this offer together. So let's start there. Does this house still fit what you said you wanted? Because before we talk about price, I want to go back to the conversations that we had before we ever walked through the front door. Why are you buying? And what did you tell me really mattered to you? Maybe you're moving to Colorado for a new job, and your commute or access to work is important to you. Or maybe you're relocating to be closer to loved ones. And that location of this home, it really supports that. Or maybe part of the reason you're moving here is because you want easier access to the outdoors and the Colorado lifestyle. Then there are things that you told me you wanted in this house itself. Maybe you needed a home office, a certain amount of space. Maybe you wanted a main floor bedroom or bigger yard, a garage. Whatever your priorities happen to be, does this house still check the boxes that mattered most? Or did we walk into this amazing kitchen and suddenly forget half that list? Because that certainly does happen. A beautiful kitchen island, well, that's been known to make buyers reconsider a few things. And actually, that's okay. Your priorities can certainly change. Sometimes you don't really know how important something is until you start walking through homes. Something you thought was a must-have may become less important, and something you hadn't even considered may suddenly move to the top of your list. Let's make sure this home still supports the reason you're buying in the first place. And if it does, that's great. Now, I want to learn as much as I reasonably can about this property. Now, we're not going to know everything before making an offer. That's why we have due diligence and, depending on your contract, inspection and other protections. But if the information is available to us now, I want to know it now. So I'm going to start gathering the information. What information has the seller provided about the property? What does the property history tell us? Are there known issues or improvements that we should be aware of? What are the property taxes? Is there an HOA? And if there is, what information is available to us at this point? What stays with the house and what doesn't? Depending on the property, there may be other information that we want to look into as well. And part of gathering information is having a conversation with the listing agent, because price may not be the only thing that's important to the seller. Maybe timing matters, maybe possession matters, or there may be other terms that are important to them. And if I can learn more about what the seller is hoping to accomplish, that's additional information for us to consider when we're crafting your offer. Now, that doesn't mean we're automatically going to give the seller everything that they're looking for. Not at all. It just simply means we have more information, and information gives us something to work with. But there's another piece of information that I want before we start talking seriously about your offer price. And this is a big one. What is the market around this house telling us? And this is where I get really specific, because I don't want you basing your offer on something you heard on the news about the Denver housing market. Honestly, I'm not even necessarily interested in what's happening across all of Littleton or Lakewood or Golden or Arvada. Right now, I'm interested in what's happening around this house. I want hyper-specific local data. So I'm going to look for the most relevant comparable properties that I can find. What have similar homes nearby actually sold for? And how recently? How similar are those properties to the house that you're considering? I'm looking at things like size, condition, age, location, lot size, features, and the characteristics that could actually affect how buyers compare these properties. I also want to know what's competing with this house right now. What's active on the market? What's under contract? How long are comparable homes taking to sell? Have similar properties had price reductions? And when the information is available, are we seeing seller concessions? Because here's something that's really important to understand when you're buying a home in Colorado. The market can change considerably from one area to another. Sometimes even moving only a few miles or from one neighborhood to another can give us a very different picture. That's why I don't want you basing your offer on what you've heard about the Denver market in general. I want you to have hyper-specific information about what's happening around this house. And I want to be clear about something. That data isn't going to magically spit out a number and tell you this is exactly what you should offer. Real estate just doesn't work that way. What it does give us is context. Now we have information that we can talk through together. We can look at what the data appears to support, discuss the potential risks and benefits of the different options, and then you can decide what you're comfortable with as we craft your offer. Because ultimately, it is your offer. My role is to make sure that you have information that you need to make a confident decision and to advocate for you every step of the way. And there's another distinction here that's really important. What the market data appears to support and what this particular house is worth to you. It may not necessarily be the same number. Maybe this house checks nearly every box that you've been looking for. You've seen what's available. You've looked at the data. We've talked through the potential risks, and you decide that you are comfortable paying more because this house has additional value to you. And that is your decision. Or maybe you love the house, but the data gives us reason to be a little more cautious. Again, my role isn't to make that decision for you. My role is to show you what I am seeing, talk through the risks and benefits with you, and give you the information that you need to decide. Because now we're finally ready to start talking about the actual offer. And here's what a lot of buyers are surprised about. Because an offer is much more than just one number. So let's talk about crafting your offer. When buyers first think about making an offer, the natural question is, what should we offer? And yes, certainly price is obviously important, but price is only one part of an offer. There are other terms that can matter too. Your financing, your earnest money, your closing date, possession, whether you're asking the seller for concessions, and the different deadlines and protections within your contract. Now, depending on the property, the seller, and what's happening in that particular market, some of those terms may matter more than others. And this is where the information we've already gathered becomes useful. We know more about the house. We understand the hyper-local market. We've gathered whatever additional information we reasonably can. And when possible, we've learned whether there are things besides price that may be important to the seller. Now we can talk strategy. I'll explain the different options available to you. We'll talk about the potential risks and benefits and how different terms could affect both the strength of your offer and your protection as a buyer. For example, if you're considering a particular inspection strategy, let's talk about what that means. If we're discussing appraisal, let's understand what your options could mean financially. If you're considering asking for seller concessions, let's talk about how that could affect the overall offer. And if you're considering offering more than some of our comparable data appears to support, let's talk about why you might choose to do that and what the potential risk could be. Then you decide, because I want to make sure that your offer is crafted the way that you want. I'm not going to tell you how badly that you want this house, and I'm certainly not going to make the decision for you. My responsibility is to give you the information, help you understand your options, answer your questions, and advocate for the decisions that you make. Because here's something that I really want buyers to understand. The strongest offer isn't necessarily the offer with the highest price. And the offer most likely to win isn't necessarily the best offer for you. Those are two very different things. Our goal isn't to simply win this house. Our goal is to craft an offer that you're comfortable standing behind. If the seller says yes, because that's when it gets real. And that's why before we hit that send button, there's one more thing that I want us to talk about. Where is your line? This is a conversation that's much easier to have before emotion or competition starts influencing the decision. Because when you really love a house, and especially if we know there may be other buyers interested, it's very easy to start saying, well, what if we just go a little higher? Or what if we change this term? Or we really don't want to lose this house. Now, I understand you finally found it. Of course you don't want to lose it. But that's exactly why I want you thinking about your comfort level before we're in the middle of those decisions. And your line isn't necessarily just about price. Maybe you're comfortable offering more because this home checks nearly every box. And after looking at the data and talking through the risks and benefits, you've decided it's worth more to you. And that's okay. But maybe there's also a number where you say, if someone else is willing to pay more, then I'm okay letting them have it. And that's important to know. And the same thing applies to other terms of your offer, because there may be certain risks that you're comfortable taking and others that you're not. There may be protections that you're comfortable modifying and others that you want to keep. And there's no universal answer. There's your answer. My role is to help make sure that you understand what those choices mean before you make them. Because I'd much rather have you disappointed that you didn't get a particular house than wake up the next morning thinking, what did we just do? All right, are you still ready? Do you remember where we started? We walked out of the house. You looked at me and you said, Nicole, this is the one. Let's do it. And I didn't try to talk you out of anything. And I didn't try to talk you out of being excited. I want you to be excited. Buying a home should be exciting. All we've done is take a little time to make sure the excitement isn't sitting in the driver's seat. We've gone back to your priorities. We've gathered information about the property. We've looked at hyper-specific local market data. We've talked about what that information may or may not tell us. We've discussed your options. We've talked through the potential risks and benefits, and you've decided what you're comfortable with. So now I look at you again and I ask, still want to do it? And if the answer is absolutely, well, that's fantastic. Now we're ready to put your offer together. Not because we're afraid somebody else might get the house, not because we're caught up in the moment, but because you've looked at the information, you understand the choices that you're making, and you're comfortable moving forward. And that's really what I want you to take away from this video. Putting an offer in on a house isn't about taking the excitement away from buying a home. It's about pairing that excitement with information, with strategy, and good conversations, so that you can make a decision with confidence. Because sometimes we may need to move quickly, but moving quickly and making a rushed decision are two very different things. And if you're planning a move to Colorado, whether you're relocating for a new job, moving to be closer to loved ones, or you're ready for a change and want to enjoy more of everything Colorado has to offer, these are exactly the kinds of conversations that I want us having long before you find the house that makes you say, this is the one. Because by the time that moment comes, I want you to feel prepared. I want you to understand the process. And more importantly, I want you to know that you have someone in your corner helping you navigate the information. You have someone talking through your options and advocating for you once you've made your decision. And if you're planning a move to Colorado and you'd like to have a conversation, you'll find my contact information and free Colorado relocation guide in the description below. And if you're following along with my Moving to Colorado relocation roadmap, your journey doesn't end when the seller accepts your offer. In fact, there's a whole lot that happens next. So be sure to continue watching the playlist, because I'll help you understand what comes next as you move from offer to owning your Colorado home. I'm Nicole Rabalato with the Mama Bear team at Exit Mosaic Realty, and I want you to remember, life is short, live somewhere awesome, and be well. We'll see you next time.